Welcome to the Dig Endurance Podcast, where we are all about digging deep and discovering the power of emotional resilience. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined by my brother Sean.
As endurance athletes and business owners, we have learned a thing or two about facing and overcoming adversity. We are here to share inspiring stories from our guests that will help you to find that inner strength when you feel like you are running on empty.
Are you ready? Let's dig in.
Welcome back to the Dig Endurance Podcast. We have a killer story for you today. We've got Ben Milam with us. Ben is a local real estate agent, personal trainer, does all kinds of stuff. Ben's a family guy. He's got 2 kids, born and raised in Fresno. I've known Ben since I was very young, for a long time. He has a very interesting and in-depth story. We definitely wanted to let him share what he has experienced in his life so far and where he's come to be today. So I'm excited. Yeah. I'm very excited to hear this today.
I don't have much more to add other than I think, we just want to hear more about, your story and what that entails. And, our listeners are well acquainted with what Dig is and why we talk about what we talk about. And so I think we just dive into your story.
I say we jump right in.
Yeah, and just
start wherever you want. You can start from your childhood and just share what you want.
So, a little bit about me. Sean had said born and raised in Fresno. I'll start kind of soccer perspective. As you guys know, big soccer player. From a very young age, I fell in love with the game, and it pretty much drove me in everything in my life for a long time. And so, very high level soccer player. I started off playing with these guys actually. We played Valley Oak, some club teams around the area. I played with his younger brother, McKay,
at Clovis West.
That kind of molded me and gave me a direction in life at a very young age. And I started...
What level, just before you move on, what level did you reach at the end of your high school career? So what was the end of
end?
Yeah, what was your guys' rank? Or what were you known as when you finished?
So we were high school, speaking high school, we were national champions.
National champions, ranked number 1 in the nation.
Number 1 in the nation.
Senior year.
But before that, I started off just kind of like playing on my own every day in school, and that kind of changed to, I was starting to make travel teams. In 8th grade, I made the Olympic development team for ODP. And that moved on to state team, regional team, and national pool. So I was in the national pool for the U.S. men's team.
Okay.
And everything, I guess if you ask my dad, he would say, I was your perfect kid. Like, I was obedient. I, did everything I was supposed to do. Didn't act out. And all of that kind of changed when I met drugs for the first time.
That'll happen.
A lot of us. I probably around sophomore year. I also have an older brother. Like, a little context, older brother who is 2.5 years older than me. And he was influential in my life in the fact that he let me try every drug that I've ever tried before. Not saying I blame him or whatnot. I could have a brother like you who probably wouldn't have swayed me in a direction that I went, but
I think we've all had similar family dynamics.
Yeah, so I had the brother I did.
Nothing new.
And sophomore year, I tried ecstasy for the first time, which I liked very much, and would literally make playlists based on the kind of e-pill that I used. Interesting story. So
that is an interesting story.
They used to have orange apples or red
white
Mac
PlayStations,
or white Motorola's, and I'd have a playlist for each pill. That's how into the ecstasy I was. Anyway, that was kind of my start in the drugs. That was kind of more fun. Still, when drugs were fun, we did it on the weekend, had fun. But junior year of high school, I got injured in a Valley Championship game, and tore my labrum and my meniscus, and ended up having to get surgery on both same time. Doctor prescribed Vicodin. Didn't think anything of it, but I remember one time my brother was talking to me. I was talking to him, and I was like, "Why am I itchy? Why am I like itchy?" And he was like, "Well, that's because you're feeling the Vicodin, you're feeling the high." And from then on out, so I was just taking that doctor prescribed for a while, and then I was at a party at my house, actually, because I used to throw a lot of parties at our house. But I was at a party on ecstasy coming down, and my brother gave me Oxycontin for the first time. And basically how ecstasy works is you peak and you start your roll, and then you start to come down and feel shitty. Well, I was coming down feeling horrible. I snorted a line of Oxycontin, and it made me roll again, straight back to like I had taken it. And I felt like from then on out, I just found
it saved you, huh?
My drug of choice. Opiates worked with my system. I was still able to play on a very high level, even on them. I actually got my first scholarship to Cal Berkeley while slamming Oxycontins or shooting Oxycontin.
Wow,
so that was junior year.
Junior year in high school.
Junior year of high school. I actually didn't start slamming till senior year, but I was doing the Oxycontin.
Okay.
That's when I first got hooked. Fast forward a little bit, we're senior year of high school. This is interesting. Senior year of high school, and I'm looking at colleges. I got the first school that I actually got an offer from was Columbia in New York. And you guys will probably remember this story.
Oh, I do. This is great.
So, Alex Lloyd was a fellow soccer player of mine.
The goalkeeper, right?
Goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I do remember this story.
Very smart kid.
This is killer. Okay.
Very smart kid. And at the time, there was a movie called Perfect Score that came out. And that movie, basically, they had other people they got the answers, I think, to the SAT, but basically I took that idea and said, well, I need a 2,000 on my SAT score to get into Columbia. Alex is smart, so let me have him take my SAT. So Alex decided at the beginning of the school year we would switch, because they take pictures for the ID. So he basically went in and took a picture for me, so it's a picture of Alex with my name on it. And
this is so creative, it's impressive.
Yeah. And so
that far ahead.
Yeah. And so he goes into to Edison, which is far away, to take the SAT.
Okay.
And gets away with it. And I ended up getting a 2340, I think, which is at the time it was at a 2400 because there was a writing section, but yes, so 2340, and I was like, bro, you couldn't have missed like a little bit, like god dang, like
what do they know?
Like, and so ran with that. Well, the problem is on UC schools. In schools, they required subject tests. So there's like follow-up tests, like specific categories, like you're taking just history or just math or whatever. And somebody in this period...
Is this the SAT2s?
Yes, SAT2s. Yes, subject tests.
This makes sense. Okay.
So at the time, I had actually... I was in that... Let me mix this up. I had committed to Cal Berkeley at the time, and that's why I had to take the subject test. But in the process of me going on the visit, taking the SAT, somebody had called in and snitched on me that I had cheated on the SAT. So they were literally waiting for me at the subject tests. And so, long story short, the coach said just retake it, but it was too late because I had gotten caught for the SAT2s. I got suspended from school, got the scholarship stripped. Now, mind you, from what I talked about earlier, this is my passion. This is my dream from a child. This is all I wanted to do. Got my scholarship to Cal taken away, got suspended for 2 weeks, and was just devastated. And that is the time that I shot up for the first time. And so yeah, senior year of high school.
Or not even at high school yet.
Not even at a high school scholarship athlete, Cal Berkeley. And because I lost this opportunity that I thought was like a devastation in my entire life. I decided to stick a needle in my arm for the first time, and did it for about 3 days straight with no communication to anybody, like just lost. And fast forward a little bit, I'm doing Oxycontin and Coke senior year of high school, still playing. Yeah, you guys might not have even known this stuff. My parents got hip to it, found out, and decided it was a good idea to send me to the methadone clinic. So senior year of high school, I was rolling up to the methadone clinic with people no legs, and I one time I took my buddies.
It's a fun place to go down there.
Downtown, or it was Tower District, to check it out.
Right
and
outside
they're like,
of Tower.
bro, where are we at? But yeah, I got on a detox at the methadone clinic while still using Oxy, because you can still do both.
Right.
But so fast forward a little bit more, and I got another opportunity to play at UC Irvine. So and this is a funny story actually too. I got the call from the Irvine coach while I was high on ecstasy, rolling on ecstasy, and he goes, "When one door closes, another one opens, and we want to let you have an opportunity to play at UC Irvine." And I said, "Well, that's great." That's great. So
I love you.
Yeah. So yeah, I was super excited. So I committed to UC Irvine and took the trip down to Irvine.
I'd rather live in Irvine than Berkeley. But anyway.
Yeah.
Same here.
It was nice.
Same here.
Super nice spot. I got my own apartment. Problem was, my dad drove me down there. Problem was, I went with about 30 Oxy.
The problem
80s.
was you're doing drugs.
So I'm addicted going down there. So I was like losing battle. Get down there. Lasted 2 months. I would drive on the Amtrak back to Fresno because there's nothing in Irvine, like drug wise.
Just
It was
knew
like
the
the
easy hook
safest
was
place in the
out.
world. I think it was rated the safest place in California on multiple occasions. But anyway, I would take the trip back on the Amtrak, go score, come back, start the process, and still try to maintain. This was preseason, so still try to maintain like my spot on the team, et cetera, et cetera. Wow. Long story short, didn't work out. Went to my first rehab 2 months after. It was Pacific Hills, which I think is a different name now, but it was in San Clemente.
Okay.
Fell in love with the rehab, fell in love with the town. It was a 30-day program. It was like, went surfing every day. It was like a 5-star chef. Like, it was ridiculous.
Sounds good.
It was a good time, but I wasn't ready. So I finished that and relapsed in the aftercare program within like a week.
Okay.
Went back to Fresno. Got kicked out of my house because I failed every category of the drug test my dad gave me, and was living at like a kind of like a flop house.
Yeah.
Not mentioning any names, but yeah, it was a spot right across from Kasner, an apartment. I switched to heroin by then. Started shooting heroin, and made the decision to go to Teen Challenge. And that was 2008.
We were just talking about Teen Challenge. Okay.
So 2008, made the trip to Teen Challenge, and I went to Texas. I moved all the way to Texas to get far away. My uncle lived there. Great spot. Was there 10 months, and during that period, got another scholarship while I was in the program. UNLV told me to come do an open tryout, and they were going to give me a scholarship. So I left early a little bit from the program. I was 10 months in.
And how did you feel at that time?
So I felt at that time kind of like it wasn't as solid like as my trajectory going to Cal. I had this perfect like dream of like exactly what I wanted to do, but it was still like my passion. So I was like, okay.
You had 10 months under your belt, so it wasn't like.
And that's what I was going to ask. Like,
so like
10 months into a program, did you feel pretty ready?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, I felt confident.
Yeah.
How it works at Teen Challenge is they have a term called they bless you out, which is like they graduate you when you they feel you're ready.
Okay.
So I talked to them about it. I don't necessarily think that they were ready to bless me out or whatever, but they didn't necessarily want to stop me from moving on and doing something that I'm passionate about.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
So I take the trip to UNLV, have the open tryout, and killed it. And got a full ride to UNLV. And I was supposed to, so I come back from Teen Challenge. This was 2009. Like January, I'm back here. And I had till, I don't remember when it was, like September till the season started. Till I had to make it till September. So here I am back in Fresno, back in similar circles. And I remember going to a party, wasn't drinking, wasn't doing anything. And then I saw an old acquaintance who was there at the party. He had some oxys, and I could tell because his eyes were pinned. And I went up to him, I got some, and that started the final fall. So this was my third Ruin scholarship. So I started doing oxy again pretty heavy. And continued that through the summer. I'm trying to think of dates. So this is trippy. Okay, so I did, let's say January to June, I'm using heavy, like Oxycontin. I started doing meth, slamming both.
Okay.
And got so bad. Let's see, I'm trying to remember. Got so bad, and I was hanging out with my brother at the time as well, who's doing the same stuff as me, and got kicked out of all the houses again. My dad's house first, my mom's house second, and then a family friend that lived in Sanger for a little bit got kicked out of there. So I ended up at my brother's house over at, what are those places by Jan Thomas, those houses right behind there.
Oh, the European Parks.
Oh,
European Parks.
Yeah.
So I was at the European Parks, and I'm living with him, and one night he's like, dude, I don't have money for rent, yada yada. Like, we need to...
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
And so, to get money, we decided it's going to be a good idea to go rob somebody at an ATM. Now... like, if somebody looked at, like, my background and how I am as a person, like, this would be the last thing probably that anybody would say that I would do. Like, good family. My mom's a newscaster, was for 30 years for ABC. My dad's an attorney. Like, I'm provided for, like, I didn't want for anything. So, like, something like this was a shock to the community probably. And most
probably
likely.
that's pretty sure it was
for the people who knew me for sure. But
okay.
So anyway, so we decided it would be a good idea to go rob people at an ATM with a gun, and pull out the max amount, which is $300. Like, it's the most ridiculous thing. Like, $300 just to score, and that just goes to show you how crazy drugs are and make you, because it's like not in my right mind would I have ever thought that I'd go and pull a gun on somebody to get $300 or pull out the max at an ATM to support a habit, or to pay rent, because we're supporting a habit and not paying rent. But anyway, so this was over Cedar Shepherd, at the ATM right over on
Cedar and Shepherd. I thought it was Champlain and Parent.
No, Cedar and Shepherd.
Okay.
Well, there was multiple. So, so the ones that I did were over on Cedar and Shepherd.
Okay.
So,
like the EECU ATM?
So EECU right there. So there's
by Jack's
used
Car
to be
Wash.
Orbit Cafe. Now it's, what is it? The Pancake Spot.
Batter Up.
Okay, so there's a EECU right there. So what I did is I waited for somebody to come over, and credit union, mind you. So this is people that, like, correctional officers, like people like that, a lot of the time that use this place. So just so happens that the person that I go to rob is a correctional officer.
Oh boy.
But that's later kind of in the story.
Okay.
So I run up on him and I say, yeah, pull out your max. And now my get up is like I have a bandana up like over my face, right? like Jesse James style. Like
Yeah. Okay.
Dumb. Anyway, so I go run up on him. He's all freaking out. Obviously, he pulls out $300. I grab it from him. I take his phone because I don't want him to call the cops. I beeline over the ponding basin, and take off. Everything's good. Got away with it. Got the $300. Scored some oxys. Got high. Called it a day. Well, then the money ran out. Obviously, it was $300, and so we were like, well, we need some more. So we went and actually looked at different spots that we could go hit, and there was just none that were looking right. And so he's like, well, we'll just go back to the same spot.
Not to mention you have a police department
that's around
a
the
quarter
corner.
mile away in 30 seconds.
Yep. So that, again, just drug brain thinking right here. And so go back to the same spot. This was probably 3 days later.
Okay.
Something like that. 3 or 4 days later. Go back to the same spot, wait for him to come up. Same get up. Comes up, goes to the ATM. I come up behind him, do the same thing. Hey, pull out your max, yada yada. And he was having trouble with his card, wasn't working. Come to find out, it wasn't working because it was a setup. 2 undercover cops run up with AR-15s drawn, and this is actually how I got caught. But as they ran up, I turned to look, and the mask fell down, and the ATM shot a picture of the side profile. And so didn't get caught there. I ran while the guns were drawn on me towards the wall by the ponding basin, high jumped it, ran through fences, backyards, got away, had, I think they said like 20 cop cars and 2 helicopters trying to look for me.
Oh, I'm sure.
My getaway driver.
Fresno style right there.
Getaway driver ended up taking me over to the post office. Meeting me over at the post office.
Okay.
Which was, I don't know how I made that way over there, but it was a few miles away.
Right.
Got away. I thought I had gotten away. Like, I got away. I didn't know the ATM had snapped a picture of me, but got away, and thought nothing of it. The next day, my mom comes over, and I'm like, hey, Mom, I need some money. And she was like, if you need money that bad, why don't you go sell your car? At the time, I was driving a BMW, right, while I'm robbing people. It makes a lot of sense. And so my brother and I went over to CarMax to sell the Beamer, which I had just purchased probably within the year, or my dad got for me. And he titled it to my name, which was dumb, but he did. We ended up getting like $6,000 for it.
Okay.
It was not worth $6,000. It was worth a lot more than that, but got $6,000. They probably knew we were junkies. And went back to the European courts, or we're on the way back to over there. And as we were approaching, there was 2 cop cars outside waiting. My brother ended up going back and meeting them, and they took him into custody for being under suspicion of being under meth for just questioning.
Right.
I took off. I ran from European Park all the way to Tice. So that's it's
a few miles.
Few miles, something like that. But I just sprinted all the way over there. Took my SIM card out of my phone because I was paranoid at this point, obviously. And met 2 accomplices over or they weren't accomplices. They were actually, they were my co-defendants because they ended up getting charged for harboring me as a fugitive.
Okay.
But 2 guys, drug acquaintances that I knew from back in the day, we went on the run for about 3 days. I shaved my head to try to change my appearance. We got probably $2,000 to $3,000 worth of drugs, from oxy to coke to meth to just everything you can think of. Wow. Completely lost in my mind. And I remember getting a phone call from my dad, and he was like, there's 2 officers that showed up at the house saying that you were wanted for armed robberies. And I was like, I didn't really know what to say. Like, it was just like, me and my dad are quite close for people who know me, and I didn't really say anything. I just told him, yeah, and so when co-defendant and I went on the run, basically we got caught because I was at Shaw 99. There's 2 hotels like across the street from each other. I don't remember. There's a Motel 6 and then some other. I don't remember the other. We were at the other one.
Where is this at?
Shaw 99.
Oh, Shaw 99.
And I had called an ex-girlfriend of mine to come hang out or whatever. I'm not mentioning any names. But
right.
Ex-girlfriend of mine, and she ended up snitching on us, which was a good thing. The cops were called, and in this time we were so paranoid that we ended up switching hotels multiple times, but this is one of the ones. I went right across the street to the Motel 6. And next thing I know, and time's kind of all screwed up at this point, but next thing I know, I come out of the Motel 6, and I'm surrounded by about 20 police officers. And now the APB or whatever you say out on my name was that I was armed and dangerous because I just robbed somebody at gunpoint. So I have in my hand the sunglasses case that I had all my drugs in and shit, and I was so messed up that I pulled the sunglasses case out of my pocket to go to throw it, like they're not going to see me throw it or something. And like luckily my dad was there and my attorney, or the attorney that he had for me. So they kind of had to and my mom's at the same time pleading with the police department not to shoot me because they have armed and dangerous, whatever. And so they're surrounding. I throw this and they don't do anything, luckily. And I got taken into custody. I had about $3,000 on me at the time. And they actually counted it out. I thought they were going to take it for sure under that I was trying to deal with how many drugs I had on me, but they put it on my books for county, got taken into custody. And I remember getting into the custody, and I was talking to my attorney, and I was just like, so when do you think I'm going to get out of here? Just no clue of what's going on. And he goes, I don't think you're going to be getting out very soon. And so
at all.
Yeah, so at the time I was withdrawing from multiple drugs. I woke up on a county bed in B pod, 2nd floor. It was a bulldog pod, and withdrawing pretty bad. And I had one of my buddies actually in the pod with me, and he came over and he said, hey bro, do you need help getting well? And I said, yeah. Hell yeah. And
quite the lucky man so far.
Yeah, so I ended up getting fronted meth from the Bulldogs.
Oh my goodness.
To try to help with withdrawals, which it did. It doesn't completely, but it does a little bit. And so did meth in there for the first 2 days. Well, and this kind of takes me back to correctional officer and or the person that I robbed being at ECU. So the person that I robbed ended up being a correctional officer that worked on the 2nd floor.
Oh boy.
Of where I was housed. He was actually the tower officer.
Okay.
And so 2 days in, I get called, Milam, you've got to roll up to a different pod, because it was he couldn't be over me, conflict of interest. I don't exactly know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the Bulldogs thought that I was just trying to bounce out and not pay a debt. And so I got surrounded by about 15 Bulldogs going to beat my ass. And my buddy came over, said he'd cover the debt and took care of it, moved pods. Anyway, that's just there's hundreds of stories like this. But that was kind of a blessing right off the bat. That could have been worse than it was. But this is a lot to talk about. I haven't honestly talked about this in a very long time.
I'm listening. I'm sure everyone is.
Yeah.
But so was in county for 10 months fighting my case. Didn't bail out because there's no point, pretty much. I'm gonna have to serve the time anyway.
Right.
And got down to my pre-trial, and they said they were going to give me 16 years, 10 for the gun enhancement, 6 for the robbery. And that was my first offer. And I remember talking to my girlfriend on the phone, and I was like, she was like, well, how'd it go? And I was like, oh, they offered me 16. And she was like, oh, 16 months isn't too bad. And I was like, no, not 16 months, 16 years. Oh. And she was like, oh, shit. Yeah. And I feel like that's when she stopped visiting me at county.
I'm not with you here, not.
But yeah, I went to pretrial, went back to court, and I said, if you give me 6 years, I'll sign without the gun enhancement. I should have, thinking back, I should have said, I got my attorney to say less than 6 years, but so I that day I signed for 6 years in state prison.
What year is this?
This is 2009.
2009.
So context, I got arrested and taken in July 14th of 2009. So 6 months after I'd returned from Teen Challenge. Okay. And then off to the races. I feel like it's just, I remember, not gonna too much into detail with the prison stuff, but I remember the morning I got called up to go to Wasco. I had my little sack of like little stuff that you have in county that take with me, and county's a little bit different in the sense that if you've never been to jail, there's two sides. There's your people that have been to prison before, and then there's people who haven't, and it's a little just different kind of people. Like, it's more like some of me's running around like Clovis kids, not your hardened criminal types. Mm-hmm. So they take you from where I was at, new jail, to a holding cell ready to go to prison. And I remember sitting in there and kind of looking around, looking at kind of the different types of people that were in this versus where I was at, and I was like, oh shit, this is a little bit different. And it was almost like it kind of just hit me then. Like, I was just like, oh wow, this is heavy, this is gonna be a little bit different.
This is serious.
This is serious. And so they shackled us up, ankles and hands, and took us on the bus to Wasco. And I was sat next to, I remember this guy even sat next to us on the bus. His whole face was tattooed up. And I was just like, damn, dude, how did I get here? You know, like, I went from this good family, great athlete, scholarship, just every opportunity in the entire world, and I just destroyed it. With drugs. And I mean, I feel like Oxycontin was a huge epidemic that killed a lot of people in our age group. But I mean, we all have a choice. Yeah. You know, we all have a choice, and I made the choice and had to pay the consequences. But I spent the next, I think I did 5 years, 2 months, and 2 weeks, because I did 85% of my time.
5 years.
And you know, it was definitely changed me, I think, in a lot of ways. It I don't want to say institutionalized, because I feel like I wasn't completely when I got out, but I feel like it was very difficult to come back into society and deal with normal stuff, like going into a restaurant and being around people, or going into a store and buying stuff, because you just didn't, it was like everything was like new again. So however, getting out of prison probably was the best feeling I've had in my entire life. After being in there 5 years, 2 months, and 2 weeks, I feel like it was just great. I was just like, it was like every endorphin and dopamine was firing in my body, and I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. And for 3 months it was like that, and kind of like slowly, gradually get back into life. But it's almost like now that I have kids and I have all this stuff that I'm doing, I lose track of like that feeling of like, it's almost like every single thing that I did, I was grateful for. Like, I was grateful to get up in the morning. I was grateful to run to the store. I was grateful to buy something. I remember my buddy used to meet me over at Save Mart, and I'd grab a protein bar and like some drink or something like that, and we'd go hit for Washington Fitness. And it was just every little thing like that was
the best ever.
The best. And I feel like now when I get messed up in my head, or like life stresses me out, or, you know, the kids that are going crazy or whatnot, I try to reference back to like those 3 months of getting paroled from prison, because that's the most grateful I think I've ever been in my entire life. And yeah, I feel like
5 years in prison, like, I mean, obviously it's a long time, but what, I guess, what was the experience like in there? I mean, it doesn't work like that for everybody. Some people, it being in prison doesn't necessarily wake them up or help them, I guess. Like, so what, obviously there's, you mentioned there's some shock value to the people that like you were around, and then like the new situation. What was it like, I guess, throughout that time in prison? I mean, did you reach a point, or was it sounds like maybe it was early on, where it was just like, okay, I'm here, this is my situation now, but like, from here we're going up? Was that the mindset, or did it take some time to arrive?
Curve. I feel like right when I got to Wasco, I mean, nothing really prepares you for that. I feel like, I remember, let me give you an example. I got to Wasco, you do the whole trip where they get you inside, you strip down completely naked, you bend over, squat and cough, do all that jazz. And I went up to they house you based on a lot of factors. They house you based off what crime you did, how old you are, multiple things. And there's level 4, 3, 2, 1. And I went up to the booth to talk to the correctional officer. He was like, "Oh, what are you in here for?" And I was like, "Oh, robbing somebody, whatever." And he goes, "Oh, who'd you rob?" And I was like, "A correctional officer." And I was like, "Oh, that was the dumbest thing I could have said." But I got housed on level 3 to start, which was cell living. And I remember walking into the pod that was cell living, and you've got bulldog, who's there's different races, obviously, they kind of mesh together, and the Southsiders and the whites are on the bottom, or were when I was there, and then you have the blacks, the bulldogs, the others all on the top floor. And so when I was walking in, you know, everybody's yelling at you, "Who's this fucking white kid?" You know, talking just anything you can think of while walking in, and it's just like
the movies.
Like the movies, honestly. And so I was in the reception center for a little bit, and kind of adjusting to life in prison, if you can adjust to that. And it was just a trip. It's, you know, I don't know.
Did you have?
It was a trip.
When you were in prison, like, was there anybody? I mean, I don't know. Was there anyone or a few people, or I guess any experience in particular? Like, I guess my question is, and the answer may be no. Like, was there like a turning point, or was there things that happened where it was like, hey, from here, I'm only going up from here, or like, this is where I want to do from here. Like, what was that, I guess, thought process like for you when you're in prison? I mean, you're there, you know, you're going to be there. It's going to be at least a few years. I mean, did that ever really hit you? You know what I mean? Like,
in my mind, well, I kind of thought about it like after I finished the county stint of like 10 months, I thought in my mind, I have to do high school all over again plus like another year. So I'm like, gosh, it's a long time, bro. That's a very long time. But I'm like different. Like, so the recidivism rate for prison's bad. So it's about 93%, I think, go back to prison. So I'm kind of a statistic that doesn't happen very often. And I feel like I didn't really get in there for a long period of time with the attitude like I'm just gonna click up and do this gang stuff and do drugs and all that stuff. I felt like I did what I had to do in terms of kind of blending in with, you know, the races and doing what I had to do. But beyond that, I feel like I didn't click up like other people do, and to where it changes you from a prison politic, post-prison mentality where you kind of hang on to almost like the politics from prison out on the streets. Like you kind of, it's almost like people go to prison and they carry that political as like a boastful thing, like, oh, like it's cool to be like politicking and doing this, because it's a whole nother world in there on what you can do.
I can't even imagine.
But for me, I feel like I went in there being like, you know what, I messed up, but I don't want to be here. Like, I'm not trying to be here for any longer than I have to be here. Like, I want to better myself. And obviously there was scary stuff that happened in there. Close soon to when I got in to the housing, there was a guy getting dragged out that had just gotten stabbed.
Jeez Louise.
With like CSI teams coming in. So this is not like little kid stuff. Like, obviously it threw me up pretty fast, but
it sounds like you made up your mind pretty early on hey, here I'm here, but like I'm not staying another day beyond what I need to.
And I'm gonna do it. Happens. I got lucky in the sense that like I didn't pick up extra time from like some fights that I got into or tattoos that I got and stuff like that. Like, I didn't pick up extra time, so I got to get out on my release date. But I mean, even that, like, the system kind of tries to screw you, like, getting out. Like, I had to in order to live and have like a good job, it's virtually impossible from being in prison. Like, okay, so for an example, like the normal person gets out of prison with $200 gate money. That's it, $200, and they're like, go figure it out. And most of the people who get out don't have family to help them out. They don't have like what I had in the standpoint of like people that loved them or cared about them, really, from family perspective. And so what do? They get out, they have $200, they do the same thing. They go and, cop a sack, and they need to support their family or whatever they got to do, so they go back and do the same shit. Like, because there's really not a lot of opportunities for felons on resumes, whatever. So what I had to do was I had to go petition for something called a certificate of rehabilitation, which essentially puts a Band-Aid over your record and allows you to get jobs in various places, which allowed me to get my real estate license.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, so typically it's about 7 years till you get to get granted. I got granted in 3, so I was super early. So in and out of court for 3 years, right, when I got out, just to try to get the certificate. Once I got it, took the real estate test, got my real estate license, and continued with that.
So it sounds like you made up your mind, though, like while you were in prison, that when you got out, like there was no going back. It was like, this is...
I mean, I felt like yes, but the drug thing's just a factor. Like, if you're on drugs, you can go to prison. Like, to be honest, like, it's like, like, if I stay sober and keep doing what I'm supposed to do, then I don't see myself going back to prison. But there's always a risk when you start introducing drugs because you do stupid shit. To be honest,
sure.
Like, and so
what was your mindset coming out? I mean, like you're out. You talked about you talked about how happy you are. I mean, obviously it feels good. You're free, but like it was like, okay, what was the mindset? Okay, I'm out. I feel good.
Like, where are you headed? Like, what are you gonna do?
So for anybody who knows me, like you guys and other people, I'm a very driven person, perfectionist, and so for me, it was like, gosh, dude, like to me, it's like, I tried not to think so much about how much I had screwed up, because to me, I'd blown my dream soccer school, like just all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
And so, and then 5 years in prison, I did a little bit of like schooling, like college stuff, but like I missed the complete college experience. Like, I'm getting out now with like, how old was I? I was 20. I was going to be 26 a month after I got out. So I went in at 20, got out at 26, and I felt like I just had to play catch up. I was like, God, dude, like I'm in a deficit, but I'm going to like put one foot in front of the other and try to make this up.
Yeah.
But like, it's pretty defeating, to be honest, because it's like, yes, I have all these dreams and goals that I want to achieve, but it's like there's all these obstacles in the way, like, to keep me from achieving them.
Well, no one's slowing down for you either. You're
No.
getting out. It's great. You feel great. It does not change a single step you have to take
No.
for any
Right.
of these goals. So you have all that behind you, but it's still holding on to you, and you still have to do everything. Like there's
Yeah.
no way around it.
Right.
So yeah, I think just for me, because of how I am like in life, I just kind of set some goals for myself and pushed like I usually do.
You're
And-
unique in that way.
Yeah.
That's for sure. You're very driven.
So not that I didn't have any real bumps along the way. Like actually my 5-year sobriety date, clean and sober, is tomorrow.
Oh, awesome.
So
Cool. Congrats.
was
Perfect
not,
timing
Yeah,
to
it was
share.
actually, honestly was. But I'm was not perfect getting out. I screwed up.
Yeah.
Probably 6 months after I got out, I relapsed. I saw somebody over, honestly, same spot, Cedar and Knees.
That's
Not
the
going to
magic
mention any
corner.
names again, but he was noodle grooving out on the corner. And usually you'd see that and be like, I was like, scumbag, this guy's still doing the same stuff, like just talking shit in my head. And then like a day later, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, but he's probably feeling pretty good. Like, and that's how our drug brain works. It's just like it takes something and just runs with it, and ended up going and copping some black and crystal from him, and off to the races, straight to it. No alcohol, nothing, just straight to the good stuff. And ended up landing at CAP, and got sober at CAP.
Love
and
CAP.
Yeah, great place. A lot of people have gotten sober there. I think it's reopened.
Yes,
it was
it is.
closed for a
It
while.
was closed for a while, yeah.
But yeah, and then had another bump, and then got sober 5 years ago. Yeah,
And maintained it.
maintain.
That's such a...
What do you feel? I mean, obviously, this is probably the quietest on a podcast I've ever been, but I can't just help but sit and just listen to the whole thing because
by far. This is fantastic.
that's obviously intense and a lot in your story. What do you feel like was the turning point where you finally? So tomorrow's 5 years. Obviously, in the life of an addict, it's a lifelong battle, and it's something you gotta choose to do every day. But what do you feel has made the difference? What do you feel has been the difference for you?
There's definitely an answer to this. 5 years ago, I relapsed 2 months after finding out my wife at the time was pregnant with my son Beckham. And I truly believe that because I didn't, little context, my older brother, who's still in active addiction, has a 9-year-old son who he's never been a part of his life. And it sucks. And so I feel like when I was sitting in rehab 5 years ago, my wife pregnant, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this to another person. And the driver for me was, no matter what, I don't want to have my kids plural, see me high. And so that was the original motivator for me to stay clean, stay sober, and it's worked, to be honest. Like, initially, it was like the driving force to start me out, and it's continued. And kind of like, as you know, like, as the more time you have sober, it gets a little bit easier in a sense from certain things. But that has always been the driver for me, for my sobriety.
It's
a strong one.
What I'd like to say is, from that story, and this is something I live by. I've made maybe not the same mistakes as you, but in my eyes, terrible mistakes, and I make them often. And what I like to tell people, whether we're doing intakes or assessments or some consulting, a lot of people, start businesses as an entrepreneur or whatever it is, and they hit these huge stages of success. And at the, on their stride, they're going to all of a sudden have one more mess up or make a huge mistake. And it is just this huge thing for people to sit on that mistake. And I think the important thing to remember here is that, there is a way to adapt to where we can thrive from our mistakes. Like, I mean, everyone says that. It's such a cliche statement, but like, if you can learn to thrive from your mistake like you did, that last little hurrah, I think it can really push us somewhere high.
Because you would have thought, like, normal people would have thought, oh, prison's like enough, like, oh, you don't want to use it again because you don't want to land up in prison, but it's honestly not. And for some people, like even my brother, like the sad part of addiction, the reality of addiction is that it's not necessarily that my brother doesn't love his son, or like that another addict like wants to do this and not. It's that they're so wrapped up in their addiction that they just can't do it. Like,
it's such an individual thing.
It's an individual thing.
There's no comparison. You literally cannot compare anyone else's story, path, mistakes, decisions, mental health aspects. It's so individualized.
But I mean,
it's incredible.
I mean, you went to prison with like some of the worst of the worst. I mean, as you described it, and instead of I think it's still. He's like Sky to me. I think people are just wired.
Yeah, he is. He just
you're,
knows how to go.
You're wired.
And go.
In spite of your mistakes, you're wired differently.
You don't have to tell him.
I think it takes a very gritty mindset to be in prison and go through what you've gone through, and then you make the decision that some people they kind of just arrive at I'm done, I'm wasted, life's wasted.
Right.
I've gone too far, I've gone too low. And I think even as you sit here and describe it, you're just kind of like you just kind of have this calm to you, and I'm sure it wasn't always calm then, but my takeaway is that you seem like you never really let yourself get defeated by whatever was going on, that circumstances are circumstances. I don't think I've ever heard you say, it sounds like the way you told the story, and again, I'm sure you had your moments, but it sounds like you still somewhat, for the most part, always recognize these are choices I've made. I can either make bad ones or good ones. I think you seem to have always had that awareness to you, for the most part. Not that, but you already hit it. An addict is addicted. It doesn't mean you don't necessarily have the awareness. And you decided that even though, I've been through prison, like I can have a life, like, and you slipped up again after coming out. And to me, it's like, that could even be the lowest moment, even more than prison, because it's like, oh crap, I'm trying, I'm still, here, but it's like, no,
even like a father figure,
back
like
on the
my dad,
horse,
who I'm so close to, like something like that, like, oh, you're like messing up after doing that stint in prison, like was not understandable to him, but like, it happens, and honestly, a huge thing with my sobriety too that I want to touch on is how important I think it is for addicts to do physical stuff. Like for me, like obviously I have the sports background, but like anxiety, stress, anything like that, you go to the gym and you work out or you go run or whatever, there goes your anxiety and stress.
Let it out.
Almost immediately.
You don't always need to medicate this stuff. And for me, it's been so vital to use anything like that can rewire my brain and or fire the right dopamine in my brain to be okay, because obviously life's stressful. Like there's all kinds of stuff that we face in life that sucks, but to be able to release that in some way and not hold on to it, because what happens, like for me and a lot of other addicts, is we hold on to all this garbage and internalize it, and the only way we know how to cope with that is to go use
again.
And so finding outlets, and again, like he was saying, like individualized, like obviously not everybody's an athlete or into fitness, but there's other stuff like you can get into yoga. Like there's been studies of like trauma, people that have severe childhood trauma, like doing yoga, and that helps the trauma, or red light therapy or cold plunges or whatever you want to do, like something to aid you in the recovery process beyond the 12 steps. The 12 steps are great, CR, AA, whatever you want to do, like that's great, and I think I use them myself personally, but beyond that, I feel like we need something to help us when we get so anxious that we feel like if we don't do something, like we're gonna die. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for me at least.
Sure. That's good. I agree with that.
That's a great way to to end right there.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything else to say. That
well,
was fantastic.
I think what I would say is, what I'd ask, just one final thing to close on is, so like, for you is your kids. You said you kind of really seized on, my kids are not going to see me this way, and all of a sudden it seems like that was really the final nudge to hold on. And again, congrats on 5 years. That's incredible. So some advice I think I just heard was, you said a physical or a hobby or a physical thing, ideally, that can really, make you, fill that void, I guess, so to speak.
Void's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Any other throughout your journey, anything else that you'd offer to someone that's still in those shoes, that's still held up, that's still held back, that you feel like would help them to get their head above water and stay there? Anything else you'd throw out there?
I mean, just think positive, to be honest. Like, when you start getting negative in your thinking and like, oh, I messed up, I can't do this, like, you're gonna use because of it, or do something because of it. Like, if you have a positive outlook and speak things into existence that are positive, I feel like it makes a huge difference.
I think where he's most like Sky, even though they're completely different stories and different people, I think it just clicked for me is like, it nowhere when you were going through it did you describe it like you were really like felt like you were down and out, or like or defeated. It was almost just like, okay, well,
time to adapt.
yeah, what's next? How do I get around this kind of a thing?
Because it's like, what other choice do we have?
Right.
Though? Because it's like, if we take the other road and we are negative and in our heads and whatever, we're gonna use.
Yeah.
Like, so it was ultimately like, I either changed my mindset and think positively, or I'm gonna die. And the way I was using, I'll die. So it was really, that was the other thing, that was the other factor too, like what I'm doing and to my body, like, I'm gonna end up dying if I don't stop. So
for sure,
that's a motivator as well.
No, that's for
that's
sure.
For sure a motivator.
Well, that's good.
Fantastic story.
Yeah, well, incredible story. Thanks for being willing to share it, and then congrats on 5 years.
Thanks for sharing that. That was hopefully everyone was listening well to that one.
I'm sure they were. Well, have a good one, Ben. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks, Ben.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
Thank you guys.